Well, don't worry anymore about the debacle that is the 2016 election, ladies and gentlemen, because Barack Obama has a solution. He's going to nationalize all our elections. Isn't that good news? Joseph Stalin once said, quote, I consider it completely unimportant who in the party will vote or how, but what is extraordinarily important is this: who will count the votes and how? Now, we've discussed here on this YouTube channel, youtube.com/HeartStarboardRadio, on my podcasts, on American Daily Review, on Constitution Radio, and at politicalpistachio.com back in the day, about the need for an Article 5 Convention of States as a way to rein in an out-of-control federal government operating well outside the bounds of its constitutional limitations, which, as I have been constrained to point out many times in the past, would be irrelevant because it would have no power, no actual power. I'm not talking about legal authority. It would have every legal authority, but no actual power to enforce what it was attempting to do. So it would be irrelevant. Now, not that the attempt shouldn't be made, but just understand it's not going to accomplish anything. But now, the ones who really have the power, the Obama administration, have given us one more reason as to why, if it were still possible, the federal government needs to be reined in. The Commissariat of Homeland Security is considering a declaration about the upcoming election. And hey, I'm telling you, you know how for several years now I've talked about Barack Obama pulling a coup d'etat and keeping himself in office past next January 20th? This may be the first stages. The Commissariat of Homeland Security is considering a declaration about the upcoming election that would give the government that brought us Obamacare and the IRS scandal targeting conservatives full control over our elections by nationalizing the process. I told you so, folks. I didn't know the specifics or exactly how in detail it would unfold, but this certainly looks and smells and walks and talks like it. Using the catch-all phrase critical infrastructure, DHS Commissar Jay Johnson wants the feds to seize control of our elections. Quote, we should carefully consider whether our election system, our election process, is political infrastructure like the financial sector, like the power grid. Political infrastructure. There's a vital national interest in our process, so I do think we need to consider whether it should be considered by my commissariat and others as critical infrastructure. Two things you got to remember about the left, folks. They are shameless and they are relentless. Well, Commissar Johnson, as long as you're going to be careful as you consider destroying the constitutionally protected right of the states to determine elections, then I guess it will be all right. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Johnson also expressed his concern, writes the strident conservative, that our voting system isn't centralized, saying that there's no one federal election system. Which is kind of the point. It's supposed to be 50 different ones. As Mark Levin accurately points out, that was the idea when the Founding Fathers established this formerly great country. Contrary to claims by the regime, this scheme is unrelated to recent questionable accusations by the FBI of Russian hacking of voter databases. We say questionable because, as our friends at floppingaces.net point out in their coverage of the story, Obama has a long track record of telling Americans anything he feels he needs to in order to advance his fundamental transformation of America agenda. Oh, by the way, as was pointed out in the Convention of States argument, the next president, assuming that there is one, regardless of who it is, which is to say Hillary Clinton, won't reverse the overreach of the federal government even on this issue. Hillary agrees with the Obama agenda, and so does Trump, as well as insisting up and down in petulant, self-pitying fashion that elections are rigged, which means rigged against him, and in his mind they're supposed to be rigged in his favor, so much so that he is soliciting volunteers to act as, quote, observers, close quote, in the classic New Black Panther Party fashion. Hey, didn't the New Black Panthers do something like that for Obama when he ran for president? Why, I think they did. Is this another example of how Trump's campaign is becoming a lot like Obama's 2008 campaign? Other than, winning. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is in serious danger, my friends. And it's time for conservatives to take up arms, figuratively speaking, and fight to get our constitutional republic back. And that doesn't just mean fighting Hillary Clinton. It means fighting Donald Trump as well. Along the same lines of the Obama fundamental transformation endgame, the FCC now wants to create a TV content commission. I crap you not, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Motley brings this to our attention yesterday at Red State. Having a free market was fun, wasn't it? Unfortunately, more and more, the fun's over. Take what we watch on television, for example. It's been for 2 decades now an ever-expanding free market Xanadu. We've been joking for years about the amazing number of channels we have from which to choose, and nothing to watch on just about any of it. For instance, Comcast's most basic current package has over 90, and you can get more than 180. Hell, you can get 1,000 channels if you want. And that's just cable. Then there are the alternative content providers. And companies like Netflix and Amazon's Prime aren't just offering content, they're creating it. Netflix has given us House of Cards and Janet Jones and Daredevil. Amazon has given us The Man on the High Castle and dozens of other shows. Multiple additional companies offer us additional huge digital storehouses of stuff to watch. It's like trying to take a sip of water from a fire hose, and makes you wonder why we still have government media like PBS and National Public Radio. Pretty boring stuff in National Public Radio. Now, even the government, from all appearances begrudgingly, admits we are in an amazing era. Federal Communications Commission Democrat Chairman Tom Wheeler late last week wrote, quote, "There's never been a better time to watch television in America. We have more options than ever, and with so much competition for eyeballs, studios and artists keep raising the bar for quality content." So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Or how about what James Madison once wrote, long before the advent of television? In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. Close quote. But government can't help itself. The freer something is, the greater the government's reflexive desire to rein it in. The Democrat FCC chairman, the aforementioned Mr. Wheeler, wants to end all that pesky free market content creation and explosive growth and shrink it all back down to one government bureau. He is doing all of this via a pay TV set-top box power grab. What non-problem is his grab alleged to be solving? Quote, when it comes to the set-top box that delivers our pay TV subscriptions, we have essentially no options, creating headaches and costing us serious money in rental fees. That makes no sense, which is why I'm sharing a proposal with my fellow commissioners at the Federal Communications Commission to change the system. Close quote. Again, the system he wants to change or fundamentally transform is the free market Xanadu we've been increasingly enjoying for decades. Again, if it ain't broke, the government will surely insist they need to fix it. Now, the Democrat chairman's representation of the set-top box is wholly wrong. The box is not a separate adjunct component. It's the very necessary last piece in the complex encoded proprietary cable line. That starts in creation capitals like Hollywood and ends up in your living room. Content creators want their content protected. Fancy that. Cable companies sign contracts promising to protect it. The box is the last step in that protection process. It's what translates the encoded scramble, or the encoded scramble, into your favorite movies and shows. It's not just some random thing to which the government can blithely mandate third-party access. In part because it opens up an entire Pandora's box of content protection problems, which is why all sorts of content creators are also vociferously opposed. You know, like the Motion Picture Association of America and the Recording Industry Association of America, just to name two. And even though the Obama regime has by now rendered this notion remotely quaint, I mean, for the record, the FCC doesn't even come close to having constitutional authority to do this. But we will quote Republican FCC Commissioner Michael O'Reilly. He said the following: it appears to exist within a fantasy world of unlimited commission authority, which legally and constitutionally, of course, they do not have. In fact, legally and constitutionally, they don't have any right to exist at all. But in practice, they have every bit of power they need to make this happen. And I do mean and emphasize, make it happen. The Commission is and must remain in the business of licensing spectrum and infrastructure, not content. Well, it's no longer limited to that, Commissioner O'Reilly. It should be. Legally and constitutionally. In fact, again, legally and constitutionally, the FCC doesn't have any right to exist at all. But they do exist, and they have the power to make what Commissioner and Chairman Wheeler wants to do a reality. And they'll do it probably in the next couple of months. Wait, what? What, the government licensing content? Oh, yes. Oh, yes! FCC to propose itself as sole TV programmer and latest set-top box twist. That's another headline. Forbes magazine. Is TV's second golden age coming to an unfortunate and unnecessary end? Yes, it is! The answer could depend on just how far the FCC is willing to go to rescue its deeply troubled proposal to unlock pay TV set-top boxes. FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler is now considering the creation of a copyright licensing office within the FCC, replacing complex, separate, private sector arrangements with device manufacturers with a single contract overseen and possibly written by the commission staff. It's here, folks. It's here. The Democrats don't have to repeal the First Amendment, and they really they tried to. They made a publicity stunt of trying to formally do so in the Senate a couple of years ago, but the truth, the reality is they don't have to formally do anything. This is how they're going to do it. Things like this. Just the FCC is going to license content for all TV networks, for every cable network and channel, every local channel, movies, records, every creative endeavor. The popular culture itself will now flow through the FCC. And they will have approval over whether the content meets government standards. It's here, folks. It's here. We are to that point. 1984, Soviet Politburo, Chi-Com Politburo, Joseph Goebbels. We're right here. It's right here. It's done deal. Signed, sealed, delivered. Get that, folks? Hundreds, thousands of privately negotiated contracts between willing private participants will be shredded, rendered null and void, and rewritten by government in a one-size-fits-all manner. So the government will now control television and radio, and all media content will be controlled by the government. You can see where this is headed, right? Behold, the Government Television Content Commission. How very Soviet of them. Content creators, the National Association of Broadcasters are they're thrilled. Here's their quote. The broadcasters insisted that any new regulations aimed at encouraging more set-top box options make clear that the FCC has no authority to establish, interpret, or modify agreement terms in any way. Any action that could restrict copyright owners' ability to impose reasonable conditions on the use of their works through the private negotiations, the NAB wrote, represents an existential threat to our vibrant video programming marketplace, which is the whole point. Oh, by the way, Trumplicans, Trump would be on board for this. You've heard him say he will use something like this to shut down. If he were to somehow get elected, he'd absolutely be for something like this. He'd impose this himself because he wants to control all content along the orientation of whether or not it's flattering to him. You think Trump is gonna be against something like this? Are you? Hell no, he'll be all for it. He'll use this. I guarantee it. This is coming. This is here. And we can't stop it because of Trump supporters. Obama's going to do it, and he's either going to pull a coup and stick around, or Hillary Clinton will use it and exploit it, or Donald Trump would use it and exploit it. Either way, hello, Federal Television Content Commission. Goodbye, First Amendment. Behold, yet another dose of Obama regime fundamental transformation, ladies and gentlemen. Because these past 8 years of fundamental transformations have been such a resounding success. And oh yes, one way or the other, they're going to continue.